One of the most common questions I get on a consistent basis being a dividend growth investor is, of course, what is your largest position in your long-term dividend growth portfolio? Now, as you see right here, if we sort the market value by highest to lowest, my 1,000 shares of Apple, valued at around $191,000 as of now, is by far the largest holding in my overall dividend growth portfolio. Now, in this video, we are going to do a deep dive into the Apple stock and talk about why I think the stock might be considerably overvalued, and also why I plan on selling all my shares of Apple coming soon here and investing all the proceeds into the SCHD Etf. Now we're going to go through all this and more in today's video. Right after you please drop a like on it and subscribe for more content like this in the future. So first, let's go over some of the basics when it comes to Apple stock. It's currently trading at over $191 per share, which is absolutely insane considering Apple was around $129 just a matter of a few months ago. Now, myself being a dividend growth investor, some of the most important things when adding different stocks and or ETFs into my portfolio, they have to cross off at least a few prerequisites. The stocks and ETFs I look for have to have long-term capital appreciation, and again, of course, some are going to have more than others, and they also have to pay a dividend of some sort. Now, when it comes to something like Apple stock, as you can see, the long-term capital appreciation has been quite obvious. The stock is up hundreds and hundreds of percent. And at my current cost basis of around $120 per share, I'm up considerably on my shares of Apple just over the last few years. But the one thing that I don't love about Apple is, of course, the dividend. And as I get closer and closer to wanting to use all my dividend income on a monthly basis to cover my bills or just to cover my life expenses completely, owning 1,000 shares of Apple, which is only giving me around 24 cents per share per quarter, might be leaving some meat on the bone with my current strategy and outlook. Now, to dig deeper into Apple stock, Apple was one of the pioneers in personal computing, but since has grown to become one of the world's biggest forces in consumer electronics with over $260 billion in annual revenue. Now, Apple today obviously sells a ton of phones, desktop computers, laptops, tablets, smartwatches, and other things throughout their stores. What's pretty interesting about Apple is that even though they have a catalog of different products these days, Apple's business continues to be dominated by the iPhone, which accounted for around 63% of all revenue back a few years ago. But even with all the success that Apple has had throughout their product catalog, there's still some major headwinds ahead for the company. A few of these being things like most of the developed world at this point is pretty much saturated with phones, including hundreds of smaller Android manufacturers offering a good enough alternative compared to the expensive and only growing prices of Apple iPhones. Also things like supply chain issues, which we've seen over the past few years. However, through all the ups and downs that Apple's had over the past years, Apple has still proven itself to be a standout in the space and being the obvious leader when it comes to technology, thanks to a strong focus on building and maintaining a premium brand over time that I can say pretty confidently we all love. But with all that being said, owning 1,000 shares of Apple that's currently trading at around $191 per share definitely has me considering making some big moves in the portfolio soon. Now, the exact move that I'm planning to make very soon here, maybe towards the end of the year, is to sell all my shares of Apple and put all the proceeds into the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF known as SCHD. Now, if you don't know, the SCHD Dividend Equity ETF is an exchange-traded fund that was launched by Charles Schwab back in 2011. This fund invests in stocks of companies across energy, materials, industrials, consumer discretionary, consumer staples, healthcare, financials, information technology, communications, and the utility sector. Now, unlike Apple, SCHD is an ETF that's made up of a basket of high-quality stocks that all have a few things in common. All these different stocks pay a dividend. A lot of them pay a pretty substantial dividend, and they all have a history of increasing their dividend over time. The top 10 companies in this ETF being Broadcom, United Parcel Service, Verizon, Merck, Texas Instrument, Cisco, Pepsi, The Home Depot, Coca-Cola, and Amgen. Now, SCHD has a current trailing 12-month dividend yield of 3.58%, which, comparing the current forward dividend yield to Apple's 0.5%, for more income-focused investors that might not be as concerned with rapid capital appreciation, SCHD would be the obvious leader. Now, like I said earlier, I currently own 1,000 shares of Apple that pay me around 24 cents per share per quarter. Now, this earns me around $240 every single quarter, or if we were to try to find how much per month on average, my 1,000 shares of Apple or $191,000 investment earns me around $80 per month. Now, once again, I fully understand that most investors don't buy into Apple shares to get rich off the dividend. And this is simply because there's clearly no reason to. If you just bought into shares of Apple and held long term and picked the right time to sell off the shares, investors could get more than rich off of the capital appreciation and the massive growth off of the stock price. But that being said, if I was to take the $191,000 and buy shares of SCHD, which is currently trading at around $72 per share, the Apple proceeds, if I sell all my shares, could give me around 2,652 shares of SCHD at the current price that it's trading at. Now, the last SCHD dividend was 66 cents per share, and this was a quarterly payout that was announced around a month ago. So just to see how much I could earn per quarter from taking all my Apple proceeds and buying all SCHD, if we took 2,652 shares, which is how many shares I would receive, times 66 cents, which is how much SCHD paid last quarter. And keep in mind, some quarters SCHD pays more, some less, but let's just go off of the last quarter, for example. I would be receiving $1,750 every quarter from my shares of SCHD. Now again, currently, Apple is paying me around $240 per quarter. And here's an actual screenshot from my portfolio you can see right here. So on average, if we were to take the money and put it into SCHD, we would be earning around $1,500 or so more per quarter by investing the money into SCHD rather than Apple. Also, what's pretty crazy is that if we averaged out the SCHD quarterly payouts on a monthly time frame, that's around $583 paid to me on average every single month. Now, I know some less income-focused investors are going to say, well, sure, you might be getting paid more on a monthly or a quarterly basis by moving all the money from Apple into SCHD. But what about the massive capital appreciation ahead? With Apple's current market cap at over $3 trillion, I don't honestly know how much larger this stock is going to get in the future. And on top of that, when it comes to Apple, I currently own other ETFs throughout the market that do have more than enough portion of Apple in them. And when it comes to SCHD, this ETF also does offer some long-term capital appreciation. Over the past 10 or so years, SCHD is up as far as ETF price around 176%. So it's not like this fund has a history of trading sideways and or decaying over time. But I want to hear what you guys think of this idea down below. And be honest, do you think it's a good idea for me to sell off my 1,000 shares of Apple, currently valued at around $191,000, and put all the money, buy thousands of shares of SCHD with the proceeds? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like in the video and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Thanks for stopping by as always, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.